Hey there folks, I'm Mark. Welcome to the Art with Mark YouTube channel where I'm learning to make, market, and monetize art, and I want to share everything that I learned with you. Today I want to talk to you about what you need to start acrylic pouring. So we'll start with the fundamental basics, we'll go with the bare minimum of what you need, and then we'll explain what all of this stuff is. This is basically a bunch of stuff that I've collected over the last few years. You don't necessarily need all of this stuff to get going, so we'll go ahead and cover the basics. When I first started acrylic painting, one of the first things that I wanted to do was an acrylic pour. To me, it looked like an easy way to get started acrylic painting and a fun way to get started as well. The first thing I started with was glue and water, and I believe I made one of these, or maybe both of these using glue. I can't really remember. I think this was the one that I did using glue. So you can see here. Go ahead and pull that up for you. Hold that up for you. Personally, I recommend though, if you are just getting started and you're going out to get your materials, I recommend starting with Floetrol. This is really quite affordable. You can get it at Home Depot or you can order it on Amazon. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description below to make it nice and easy for you. I've come to learn there are a lot of artists who simply use water. I don't know what their mixing ratio is when it comes to using water. It's something that I only rarely use from time to time. I got distilled water to use in my pours. So that's definitely something you can use. Now I do have a number of other things here that you're going to want to get. Some palette knives or maybe just some popsicle sticks, something to stir with. You might want to get some cups if you're going to start small, which I always recommend starting small, like on a small canvas like this, just to experiment with and get a feel for how it works. And using little medicine cups to start on a canvas this size is actually really the perfect thing. So if you fill this medicine cup and do like a foot pour like that on this small canvas, it'll pretty much cover the whole canvas and be the perfect amount of paint that you need to get started with. So once you have your Floetrol and your small canvas and your little medicine cups, the other thing you'll need is a tray like this, so that way you're not getting paint everywhere like you see on my table. I've done that from time to time. It's disastrous. This is much better to use when you're first getting started. You can pick one up at the grocery store for a couple bucks. When you're done getting the most use out of it that you can always just throw it away. So if I have to say the bare minimum you need to get started is Floetrol, some cups, and some small canvases. And of course acrylic paint as well. Now, when it comes to using acrylic paint, the most common paint to get started with is Liquitex Basics or maybe Artist Loft. The Dick Blick brand is really good to go with as well. I'll go ahead and put some links down in the description below. The basic recipe that I use to get going with is a 3-to-1 ratio. So I do 3 parts pouring medium to 1 part paint. Personally, I like to measure it out using a scale. I like to weigh it out and do it in grams. But you could basically eye it out if you don't have a scale to go with. You can eye it out by, measuring it out in the cup. That's one way to do it. And then you are looking for a fluid flow off of the stick as it drips and it mounds up a little bit. There's a bunch of other stuff I have here for when and if you get more serious about your acrylic pours. Masking tape is basically this is for when you get a little bit more serious about your pours and you might actually want to start selling them. This is something that I've been doing lately with all of my new pours. It's not something I used to do, but if you look at the back here, it gets really messy. And if you just tape off the back, that's a good way to avoid that mess. One thing that'll help you get some cellular structures in your acrylic pours is this treadmill lubricant, which you can get on Amazon, but it's basically silicone oil, which I'm sure you can find in other products as well. The torch is basically used to get air bubbles out. It can also be a good way to get cell structures in various different patterns in the pour, but it's primarily used to get air bubbles out of the fluid once you flip the cup over. And then these little squirt bottles here are really great to get as well, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of pours and you're pretty serious about getting into acrylic pouring. These are really great to have so that way you can mix up all of your paint and then you still have something left over to keep them nice and fresh for when you're ready to do your next pour. There's also the Liquitex pouring medium. This I find has a very thick consistency, and it's definitely something that if you're going to be using this for your pours, you're going to want to get some gloves or something like that because it will stick to your hands. In fact, I don't use gloves enough. I really should, because there are some paints that you really don't want touching your skin. So an example of that is these golden acrylic paints, which I haven't really used yet, but if you do any kind of pours using these, you don't want this touching your skin. There are some materials in these particular kinds of paints that are a little bit toxic. You definitely don't want to get in the habit of doing pours without gloves. That's something that I am in a bad habit of doing. In fact, when I do a demonstration of these pours in the next video, I probably won't have gloves because I'm a moron like that. Okay, and then the last thing I want to talk about is this right here. I actually picked this up in a video I did a month or two ago where I went and I got some art supplies at Home Depot. This is something that you'll want to get for doing larger pours. Definitely something you'll want to get if you're getting more serious about doing acrylic pouring. That way you can collect the excess paint in the bottom, and you can even collect the skins. Basically, once the paint dries, you can peel it off and you can save it to make other stuff with it. So that's something cool to keep in mind, and it's certainly a lot better than having to continually buy those little metal trays and throwing them out. That said, one of those metal trays can last a while if you just let it cake up inside of the tray, but eventually you're going to need to throw it out. So if you want to be a little more eco-friendly, go with the plastic container. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything that I have here. I hope you found this helpful in figuring out everything you need to get started acrylic pouring. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe to the channel so that way you can check out our next video that we do where we actually demonstrate how to do an acrylic pour.